So, good morning, students. As we have learned that Bruno was the name of the bear which was kept as pet in the family of a couple. It was this Bruno was a sloth bear and it was kept in the house of the narrator. Then it gradually became a trouble to the family, and ultimately it was decided that it should be shifted to the zoo in Mosul, in the city of Mosul. Apart from it, there were some other troubles that he started creating, and it was ultimately decided to send Bruno to the zoo in Mosul. A letter was written for the permission, and the zoo curator sent his permission to shift Baba to their zoo. So let's continue from paragraph 15, page number 116. After that, friends visiting Mysore were begged to make a point of going to the zoo and seeing how Baba was getting along. Means they were all curious to know how he was going on there. Then, after 3 months, he managed to restrain his wife from visiting Mysore. He could not stop his wife. She wanted to go to visit Baba, to meet Baba in Mysore. And then she decided that she would go by herself, either by car or by bus or by train, if he was not interested in taking her there. So let's continue. Friends had conjectured that the bear would not recognize her. I had thought so too, but while she was yet some yards from his cage, Baba saw her and recognized her. She howled with happiness. She ran up to him, patted him through the bars, and he stood on his head on delight. Just imagine, in delight, he stood on his head. Conjunct means formed an opinion. Formed an opinion. Fine. So when they reached to the zoo, when they were few yards away, Baba recognized her, and in his happiness, he stood on his head in his delight. For the next 3 hours, she should not leave that cage. She gave him tea, lemonade, cakes, ice cream, and what not. How much amount of eatables she took with her to give it to eat to Baba. Even tea, lemonade, cakes, ice cream, and what not. Then closing time came and we had to leave. My wife cried bitterly. Baba cried bitterly. Even the hardened curator and other keepers felt depressed. As for me, I had reconciled myself to what I knew was going to happen next. Fine? For the next 3 hours, they were not ready to move. She was not at all interested to leave the place. Then both of were crying. The narrator's wife and even Baba was crying bitterly. Even the curator, who was hard-hearted, he was not very soft-hearted. He was strong from his heart. Even other keepers and curators, this curator and other keepers of the zoo, they also felt depressed. And I had reconciled myself to what I knew was going to happen next. And now the narrator was getting ready. He was getting mentally prepared what was going next. Oh, please, sir, she asked the curator, may I have my Baba back? The narrator had a click that this thing was going on next. Oh, please, sir, she asked the curator, may I have my Baba back? Hesitantly, he answered, ma'am, he belongs to the zoo and it's government property now. I cannot give away government property, but if my boss, the superintendent at Bangalore, agrees, certainly you may have him back. So, the narrator's wife requested the curator to give her his Baba back, give her this Baba back to her. And hesitantly, the curator replied that he could not give this Baba because it was now a property of government and he could not give the government property. And if they get the permission from the superintendent, then only she could carry her Baba along with her. There followed the return journey to Bangalore and a visit to the superintendent's bungalow. A tearful pleading. Baba and I are both fretting for each other. Will you please give him back to me? He was a kind hearted man and consented. Not only that, but he wrote to the curator telling him to lend us a cage for transporting the bear to Bangalore. Now, what happened? From there to the return journey to Bangalore and a visit to superintendent's bungalow. So the process had started. They went to Bangalore and visited superintendent. She requested tearful pleading means requested crying. She tearfully requested, Baba and I are both fretting for each other, means we cannot live without each other. Will you please give him back to me? He was kind-hearted man and consented. He agreed. Not only that, he wrote to the curator telling him to lend us a cage for transporting the bear to Bangalore. Fine. Even he instructed and wrote a letter to the curator to provide them a cage for the safe transportation of the bear. Back we went to Mysore again, armed with the superintendent's letter. Baba was driven into a small cage and hoisted on the top of the car. The cage was tied securely, and a slow and careful return journey to Bangalore was accomplished. Then they went to Mysore again with the consent letter of superintendent. Baba was put into again a small cage and it was hoisted on the top of the car where it was kept. The cage was tied securely, properly, so that it would not fall. And very slowly, carefully, their return journey to Bangalore was completed. Once home, a squad of police were engaged for special work in our compound. An island was made for Baba. It was 20 feet long and 15 feet wide and was surrounded by a dry pit or moat, 6, 5, 6 feet wide and 7 feet deep. A wooden box that once housed fowls was brought and put on the island for Baba to sleep in at night. Straw was placed inside to keep him warm and his baby. The gnarled stump, along with his gun and with the piece of bamboo, both of which had been sentimentally preserved since he had been sent away to the zoo, were put back him to play with. What happened? Again, a number of workers were called in to make a safe and comfortable place for Baba. An island was made. First of all, an island was prepared. It was 20 feet long and 15 feet wide. Okay. What was its area? It was 20 feet long and 15 feet wide and 7 feet deep. Then a wooden box that was housed fowls was brought and put on the island for Baba to sleep at night. Then a wooden box was again brought, fowls was brought, and it was put on the island for Baba to sleep in at night. So there he could sleep at night comfortably. Straw was placed inside to keep him warm. Straw was placed, घास बिछा दी गई, so that Baba was able to keep himself warm. Then the gnarled stump, along with his gun, actually you must be remembering that a piece of wood was kept along with him so that it was acting like a gun, both of which had been sentimentally preserved. Actually, both these things were kept very attentively, properly, with care. And it was sentimentally, means they had their emotions attached with them. Since they had been sent away to the zoo, were put back for him to play with. These things were kept in his cage to play with. In a few days, the coolies hoisted the cage on the island and Baba was released. He was delighted, standing on his hind legs. He pointed his gun and cradled his baby. My wife spent hours sitting on a chair there while he sat on her lap. He was 15 months old and pretty heavy too. Now he is growing up. But when this island was prepared, he was released from the cage. Now it was feeling very much safe, comfortable, full of freedom, fun. When he was released, he was much delighted. He was standing on his hind legs, means piche wale pair. Animals have 4 legs and he was standing on his back legs, hind legs. The narrator's wife used to spend hours with him. Then sometimes he sat on her lap. Now he was 15 months old and pretty heavy too. Now he was growing up in size and he had become quite heavy. The way my wife reaches the island, leaves, it is interesting. I have tied a rope to the overhanging branch of a mango tree with a loop at its end. Putting one foot in the loop, she kicks off with the other to bridge the 6-foot gap, and that constitutes the width of the surrounding pit. But who can say now that a sloth bear has no sense of affection, no memory, and no individual characteristics? that the main point that is highlighted in this lesson is, just think. Now, the narrator's wife used to reach the island. His reaching there and leaving the place was very interesting. What arrangement was done? The narrator had tied a rope to the overhanging branch of a mango tree with a loop at its end, and putting one foot in the loop, she kicks off with the other. But how could she reach the island? This way, with the help of a rope which was tied to a tree, mango tree, and then one foot was kept put into the loop. She kicked off with the other, दूसरे पैर से kick लगाया. Then to bridge the 6 foot gap, there was a gap of 6 foot, and by kicking that gap, by kicking on this loop, she covered the gap of, or the width of 6 foot. Okay? And that journey is made the same way. Return journey is again made, performed in the same way. But who can say now that a sloth bear has no sense of affection? After reading this lesson, no one can say that a sloth bear does not have any affection, any feelings, any memory. Means we believe that wild animals don't remember the things, don't have memory, don't have affection. We always afraid of them, isn't it? We have a fear, sort of fear. Whenever we see wild animals, can we think of bringing any such animal and bring it home? So it is highlighted in this story that wild animals are not always to be afraid of. They can be good friends to us. Okay? So this story, Bond of Love, is, we have completed the explanation. This story is all about a wonderful relationship between a bear and the narrator's wife. So it so happened that while on a hunt, the mother of a sloth bear was shot dead by the narrator and his friend. You must be remembering that the mother of this sloth bear was shot dead. All of a sudden, they noticed a little baby bear sitting anxiously near its mother. They noticed that the baby bear was sitting along with its mother. The narrator ran up and captured it. He brought it. He put it in a gunny bag and gifted it to his wife. He brought back to his house and gifted it to his wife. A very strong bond of love developed between both of them. However, after a while, the grown bear was tough to handle. Naturally, when any animal grows in size, it becomes very difficult to handle it at our homes. And the same happened at the narrator's home. However, it was decided to send this bear, send Bruno. They gave even name, Bruno and Baba. But it was decided to send it to the zoo. Permission was asked from the curator. They were ready to accept it. But after some time, when they reached to meet him, especially the narrator's wife was that much panic stricken. She was crying, even Bruno was crying, and ultimately it was decided that it should be taken to their home once back. Again, this permission was taken from the superintendent and he allowed. It was brought back home. Then special arrangements were made for its stay. An island was created for it. Good food was served, provided to him, and it was it is a wonderful example of human relationship with animals. His human mom would go and spend time with him every day. Human mom, isn't it? We can say she was his human mom. So this bond of love is a story of emotional story bonding between a wild animal and a human being. The author once found this orphaned sloth bear and presented his wife. So this narrator is highlighting the fact that wrong act can be redeemed by man. They did a wrong act. They killed a bear, but they repented in the form of taking care of this baby sloth, baby bear. So animals, wild or domestic, whether it is wild or domestic, they respond to human emotions. And that has been highlighted in this lesson.